The impossible challenge. Across the Andron Axis, where stars bloomed like blood lilies and thrones were forged from meteor iron, Queen Cycral reigned alone. Not for lack of suitors, but because no being could match her single, impossible demand. Her chosen mate would not be determined by lineage, treasure, or power. No, he would have to lift Velor, the dragon beast born of solar flame and tectonic bone, bred from a long-dead world and raised in the black chambers beneath her palace. Not tame him. Not fight him. Lift him. The challenge was ancient in design but cruel in practice. Velor was no mere beast. He was a god-shaped creature, a living colossus with obsidian scales that gleamed like polished night and eyes like molten gold. Veins filled with plasma pulsed beneath his hide, and claws that had crushed the spines of rebel princes extended from his massive limbs. He slept beside the queen's throne, a monument to strength, a monument to impossibility. Queen Cycral herself was carved from starlight and shadow. Tall and elegant, she was draped in coils of living silk and plated armor that shifted colors with her moods. She ruled with a smile that cut deeper than any blade, watching as the greatest warriors in the galaxy came to prove themselves worthy of her hand. Alien warlords arrived with fusion-pumped veins that glowed beneath translucent skin. Augmented generals came in mechanized exosuits that hummed with barely contained power. Even a gravity shifter from the Titani's belt appeared, claiming to wrestle black holes for entertainment. They all failed. One by one, they stepped before the beast, pulled with all the fire of their pride, and collapsed in shame beneath Velor's immovable weight. The dragon would barely lift his great head to acknowledge their efforts, his ancient eyes holding a bored intelligence that seemed to mock their struggles. Cycral would descend from her throne after each failure, glide past the dragon's flank with perfect poise, and laugh. Soft, she'd whisper to the fallen challenger. All of them weak shoulders, weaker hearts. A real mate lifts more than metal. He lifts me. No one had ever heard her speak those last words with sincerity. It was always a taunt, a veil, a wall built from disappointment and growing cynicism. As the years passed, the court grew colder, suitors fewer, and the queen's gaze more bitterly amused. The impossible challenge had become a ritual of humiliation, and Velor had become the guardian of a loneliness that even a queen could not conquer with power alone. Part 2, The Unexpected Arrival. Then one day, in the midst of a ceremony that had once again ended with another groaning, humiliated failure beneath Velor's curled tail, a figure arrived uninvited. He pushed a hover cart filled with battered tools and a half-empty coffee can, the wheels squeaking against the polished obsidian floor. He wore no armor, no ceremonial garb, just a sleeveless work shirt stained with oil and a grin that was far too casual for the moment. The contrast was jarring against the opulent throne room, where even the servants wore silk and precious metals. "Y'all got a lifting challenge here?" he asked, eyeing the dragon as he sipped from his mug. Steam rose from the coffee, carrying the earthy scent of a dozen world's beans. "Looks like fun." The guards stepped forward instantly, halberds humming with contained energy, their ceremonial masks hiding expressions of outrage. But Queen Cycral raised a single, elegant hand, fascinated by this unprecedented intrusion. "State your name," she commanded, her voice cool as starlight and twice as distant. The man set his mug on the floor with a soft clink and cracked his neck with the practiced motion of someone who worked with his hands. "Name's Kale Draven. I fix engines, not egos." Cycral narrowed her eyes, descending slowly from her throne, each step deliberate and predatory. Her armor caught the light from the plasma torches, casting shifting patterns across the walls. "You don't look like a suitor." "I'm not," Kale said simply, completely unintimidated by her approach. "I'm a mechanic. But I couldn't help overhearing that no one's managed to lift your oversized lizard here, and I'm good at solving problems no one else can." The court erupted in laughter. Ministers chuckled behind their gilded masks, the sound echoing off the vaulted ceiling. One noble, resplendent in quantum silk robes, sneered openly. "You'll break both arms, human." But Queen Cycral raised a single finger, and silence fell like a curtain. Her eyes never left Kale's face, searching for something, fear, perhaps, or the desperate bravado she'd seen in so many others. She found neither. "Let him try," she said, and her voice carried a note of genuine curiosity for the first time in years. The moment of truth. The floor cleared, the ceremonial space opening once more. Ancient runes carved into the obsidian floor began to glow with anticipation, as they had countless times before for countless failures. Velor lifted his massive head with a low rumble that seemed to emerge from the planet's core itself. His molten gold eyes locked onto Kale, and the air thickened with heat. Plasma veins pulsed brighter beneath his scales, and his claws carved small furrows in the stone as he shifted his weight. But Kale didn't flinch. He walked up to the beast with the same casual confidence he might approach a broken hyperdrive, adjusting his worn work gloves as he went. The dragon's head was easily twice the size of the human's entire torso. "You're a big fella, aren't you?" Kale said, his voice carrying genuine admiration rather than fear. He reached out slowly, letting Velor catch his scent. The dragon sniffed him once, a sound like wind through a forge. No growl. No tension. Just curiosity. Then, in front of 1,000 stunned witnesses, the human mechanic bent low, studying Velor's form with the practiced eye of someone who understood leverage, weight distribution, and the physics of impossible things. He positioned himself carefully, braced his arms under the dragon's scaled midsection, and locked his stance. The court held its breath. Recognition and respect. The dragon shifted his massive head, blinking once at the human with a slow, thoughtful motion. Then, before the court, before the queen, before every noble tongue and skeptical whisper, Velor bowed. His great head dipped low beside Kale's shoulder and stayed there, a gesture of respect that no one in living memory had ever witnessed. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some gasped, others shouted, and a few noble lords outright fainted, their ceremonial robes pooling around them like colorful puddles. Guards rushed to attend them while others simply stared in disbelief. Queen Cycral did not move. She stared from atop her throne, one hand slowly curling around the hilt of her ceremonial blade as if to remind herself that the world was still real. "No one," she said aloud, her voice cutting through the din like thunder, "has ever made Velor bow." Kale, catching his breath, grinned up at her with that same easy confidence. Maybe he's just tired of everyone trying to lift him like a trophy. Maybe he respects someone who knows how to carry weight without screaming about it. Her fingers tightened on the blade's hilt. She descended slowly, deliberately, stopping mere inches from him. She was taller, dressed in starlight and sharp edges, her presence commanding and terrible. Her gaze was still sharp but no longer cruel. Something had shifted, like a lock finally finding its key. "You were not invited," she said, though her tone lacked its usual ice. "No," Kale replied honestly, meeting her eyes without wavering. "But sometimes the best mechanics show up when things are already broken." There it was again, that calmness, that grit not forged in glory but in sweat and failure and try again tomorrows. The quiet strength of someone who fixed what others discarded as impossible. She circled him slowly, studying this anomaly that had walked into her court and changed everything. "Why would you do this?" "I didn't come to impress you," he said, his honesty cutting through years of flattery and false promises. "I came to fix the lie that no one could." Velor nudged his massive snout against Kale's back, nearly knocking him over in what could only be described as affection. The dragon's rumbling purr filled the throne room, a sound that spoke of contentment and, somehow, approval. A new beginning. Queen Cycral's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You lifted my beast," she said, turning fully to face him, her armor catching the light in new patterns. "But can you lift me? Emotionally?" Kale smirked, that same casual confidence never leaving his features. "That's way harder than any dragon." She laughed then. Truly laughed, once, deep and clear, the sound ringing through the throne room like the first note of a song that had been waiting years to be sung. The court had never heard anything like it. Queen Cycral, the ice-carved ruler of the Andron Axis, laughed with genuine delight. For the first time in living memory, she looked at a man and did not see someone beneath her. She saw someone standing exactly where she stood, in a place of quiet strength, unmarked by arrogance or desperate need for validation. The next morning, before the sun-star of Velor rose over the spires of the obsidian palace, Queen Cycral stood alone in the central garden, the one no one ever entered without permission. It was a place carved from silence, filled with whisper vines and roots older than her dynasty. But she was not alone for long. Kale appeared through the morning mist, still wearing his work clothes, a fresh cup of coffee steaming in his hands. Velor padded behind him like a massive, content cat, the dragon's earlier majesty replaced by something warmer, more familial. "Figured you might want some company," Kale said, offering her the second cup he carried. She accepted it, their fingers brushing for a moment. The coffee was perfectly brewed, rich and warming. "You know, I've never actually tasted coffee before," she admitted, taking another sip. "Well," Kale said, settling beside her on a stone bench while Velor curled up at their feet like the world's most dangerous pet, "there's a lot of things worth trying when you're not busy proving you're stronger than everyone else." As the twin suns rose over their world, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Queen Cycral realized that sometimes the greatest victories came not from lifting impossible weights, but from finally being able to set them down. In the distance, the palace stirred to life, but here in the garden, surrounded by ancient whispers and new possibilities, a queen learned what it meant to be lifted by someone who asked for nothing in return except the chance to fix what was broken. And for the first time in years, nothing in her world needed fixing except the beautiful, complicated puzzle of two hearts learning to beat in harmony. The end.